cents per $100 of assessed valuation will remain the same. Before I go ahead and take any of your questions, I want to remind the public that a public hearing on the recommended budget will take place on Wednesday, May 12th at 6 p.m. It will be virtual for participants, and so residents have until Tuesday, May 11th at 5 p.m. to register to speak, and they can visit mecnc.gov to learn how they can register online for that event. The Board of County Commissioners will participate in a straw vote session on May 26th and May 27th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and that will be at the Valerie Woodard Center. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you have about the recommended budget.
First question today is Joe Bruno, WSOC TV.
Hey, Dena, can you guarantee that no students will be impacted by the county putting a hold on that $56 million figure for CMS?
We can, because those categories that we selected are non-instructional categories, so that doesn't impact any teacher salaries or any classrooms. It's really just sort of administrative type categories that we put in restricted contingency.
Next question is Allison Kuznets, Charlotte Observer.
Hey, Dena, can you give us more details about the Behavioral Health Urgent Care Center? Who exactly is that serving? How big is it? And kind of how would people be diverted to that? Would that be that people would be connected there as opposed to CMP or to the hospitals?
We're still working through the details on that, but it would operate like any other kind of urgent care. So if, a family member or somebody, had somebody that was in distress and needed some immediate attention, they'd be able to go to the behavioral health urgent care, which actually would keep them out of the emergency room. Atrium has the behavioral health and mental health emergency room, and this would really keep people out of that and be able to get assessed and triaged and referred. And so it would really operate just like any other urgent care.
Next question is Steve Harrison, WFAE.
Yeah, Dena, thank you. Excuse me. My question is about the withholding the $56 million from CMS. Could you speak a little bit more about some of the, I heard earlier this morning, but some of the metrics you laid out, a little bit more detail on that. And also, do you think this is within CMS's reach or ability to do this? These are kind of issues that have been going on for decades, and there's really nationwide, this is a problem, not unique to CMS. Can you talk about both of those?
Sure, I'll answer the second question first, and I'm going to let Adrian talk specifically about the metrics. The Board of County Commissioners was very, very clear at its retreat that the education attainment gaps that we have in Mecklenburg County are unacceptable, and that we need to do more with the funds that we give to CMS to make sure that every kid gets a quality education. And so, we need CMS to come forward and be transparent and be more accountable to how the dollars that we give them are spent. And so this is just an effort to, have them come up with a plan, a strategy, to use our resources that we give them in the most effective way possible to do what they can to improve outcomes for kids, particularly minority kids. And so I think the data is pretty clear in terms of, what we're seeing at CMS. And the board continues to be concerned that we continue to fund CMS at a pretty high level, but we're not getting the outcomes that we would expect for the dollars that we provide to them. And with that, I'll ask Adrian to go ahead and talk about those specific metrics.
Sure. And first, I'm going to say, too, that the manager's recommended budget will be available on our website. And there is a page beginning on page 99 that details everything that's laid out regarding the recommendation for the restricted contingency. There are, for that restricted contingency, the recommendation is that CMS present a plan, as the manager mentioned, that includes the quantifiable goals, specified targets, and define timeframes for those targets for really four key elements. One of those is the specific measures that the state uses to calculate school achievement scores to improve our 42 schools that are low performing. The other is to set strategies to improve performance scores for individually disaggregated subgroups as well as annual performance targets that will incrementally improve the percentage of students that are scoring level 4 or better on an end of course assessment, which is what the state considers college and career ready, especially for those subgroups that fall below the district average. The third item is strategies and targets to ensure that 75% of students within all demographic subgroups graduate with at least one of the state's endorsements on their diplomas by the end of 2024, as well as strategies and targets to limit achievement gap disparities in college and career readiness to no more than 10%. So really it is seeking a plan that specifies some actions in order to address those 4 areas.
Next question goes to Hunter Science, WCNC.
Dena, thank you for taking my question. First off, what is the message that you are trying to send to CMS by restricting these funds? And second, the $18 million that y'all overpaid them last year, where did that money go to? Do you know?
So, I don't know exactly where the $18 million went. It's really just an effort to demonstrate that we funded them based on a projected enrollment that didn't materialize. And so we don't know exactly how those dollars were spent, but it certainly didn't get spent on the 7,000 children that never showed up for school there. So that's the first thing. And I think the message, it's not me, it's really the Board of County Commissioners set this as a priority that, the education attainment gaps that we have in Mecklenburg County are just not acceptable, and that they want more accountability and they want more transparency and they want better outcomes for kids. And so this is a way to tie funding to accountability. And that's what they asked me to do at the retreat, is to find a way to tie funding to accountability.
Okay, next question, please.
Do you mind panning the camera to Dena, just so we could see her when she responds?
It's automatic.
It actually is new technology. It kind of goes by itself. So let me. There it is. Okay. There you
There
go.
we go.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Can you give me just an idea of where this money would go to? This administrative money that's being held. It's about 56 million. So you say it would go to like the superintendent and I guess like PR communications. What would that money usually be used for?
It's probably for salaries would be my guess. So it's really administrative salaries, school board salaries, superintendent salaries. Most of their budget's really salaries. So I would say the vast majority of that would be salaries for those types of employees.
So are they not being paid? So part of my ignorance here. Until they get this address, will they not be paid?
We would have to, have them report back to us on that. But that, that is definitely, I guess, a possibility, because if those dollars are tied to those line items and the money is restricted, then potentially they may not they may not get paid.
Next question goes to Ann Doss Helms.
Hi. So we've done enough rounds of this that I can kind of anticipate that what Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools will say is we have a strategic plan. We have all these goals. It's not like we haven't been trying to do this. How much does this district strategic plan jibe with what you're asking them to do? And what is it that you're hoping to motivate them for?
Well, I think it does jive with their strategic plan. And I think what we're asking them to do is, their strategic plan is very broad in what's available on the website. What's not available publicly that we've really seen is really the data, the metrics, the strategies, the tactics, the goals for each specific year, and how they're going to achieve the targets that they've set out in their strategic plan. So what this really is designed to do is to say, okay, what are you going to do every single year to try to improve outcomes? What are the strategies and tactics you're going to employ, and what do you expect to get out of those? And give us that information for each year of the strategic plan, and then report back to us on how you're doing. So I think, to your point, Ann, I think they already have a lot of this data, and it's really more about putting together a plan that they can bring forward that we can hold them accountable to, because they do collect a lot of data. We know they do. They were here and presented to our board on Tuesday, and Frank Barnes presented a lot of data to our board. So what we're saying is we just want to see a plan that addresses these specific items. And more importantly, what are you going to do to get there? Because they talk about goals and they talk about targets, but they don't really talk about strategies and what they're going to do to get there. And so that's the part I think that's very interesting to us. So we can see what the county's dollars are doing and going for to achieve the outcomes that they're trying to get to.
And obviously, the pandemic has disrupted a lot of data and a lot of learning. So you're not saying they have to meet these goals in the next few months. You're saying they have to demonstrate how they're going to do so as things get back to normal, right?
That's correct. What we want is the plan on how they're going to get there. We don't expect them to get there by the end of the fiscal year, but how are you going to get there, particularly in light of the pandemic, but even before the pandemic? You know, these are data points that have been, you know, been there for a number of years in terms of the disparity, particularly for, you know, Black and brown children. That, you know, the data is very, very poor. So that was going on pre-pandemic. It's been a concern of my board for some time. It didn't happen as part of the pandemic. They've been talking about it for a while. And so this is just an effort for them to be able to say, we want to see something for the dollars that we give you.
Thank you.
We're going to circle back to Hunter Science, WCNC.
Sorry, I still had my hand up there. I did not mean that. You can go on to the next person.
Okay, next is Dedrick Russell, WBTV.
Yes, thanks for taking my question. I just want to know, I know in years past there's been can you hear me?
No, Dedrick, I can't.
Okay, you can't?
You're good, Dedrick. You're back now.
Yeah,
okay,
you're
okay.
cutting out before. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Okay, just I know years past there was a memorandum of understanding that the county would always tell the superintendent what they could expect before the budget presentation. I just want to know, did that happen this year? Did you express to CMS what you were going to do before today's presentation?
I did, actually. I had a couple of conversations I had with the superintendent telling him that the board was very interested in seeing data and metrics and more accountability and more transparency. And so I had that conversation with him several times. And in fact, we met with him this morning and laid out for him what would be in the recommendation.
Gotcha. And I guess his reaction?
He said that he's disappointed, but he understood. Is that right, Adrian?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a follow-up question. I know that we have been dealing with these issues, you know, affordable housing, workforce development, which is all laid out in your budget. But I know in years past, CMS has said that sometimes it's difficult to educate the students in high-poverty schools because their parents can't find jobs, or their parents lack health care and affordable housing, and that all just played into the fact of all what it takes to educate a student. So what would your response be to the arguments that CMS says that we're trying to do what we can, but with the problems that parents are facing, that you know plays into the challenge, and that some of that challenge comes on the county's shoulders? How would you respond to that?
I would respond that by saying that we're giving them, you know, $500 million to educate the children of Mecklenburg County, and we expect to get some outcomes for the money that we give them.
Yeah, but I guess you would understand that they're saying that the challenge to educate, because some of their parents are going through certain challenges, and some of those challenges that the county, you know, has to help. They're all in this together, so you would still have that same response.
Well, I mean, I think, are you saying that the school board has said to you that poor children can't learn?
No, not saying that. I'm just saying that the challenges.
That's what I heard you say. That, you know.
No, I guess all of the challenges that goes into, you know, educating a student in a high poverty school, and I guess that the high poverty comes from the parents cannot be able to find jobs, affordable housing, and all of that just, you know, adds up and makes it more challenging to, you know, educate the child. That's all I was saying.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is Allison Kuznets, Charlotte Observer.
Hey, Dena, could you clarify, does your budget incorporate any funding from the American Rescue Plan or any other federal COVID relief? And can you talk about your conversations with the city manager and superintendent of how you're pushing for some of the money to be used in the community?
Sure. I think there's nothing in there for that. Okay. There's no American Rescue Plan dollars or COVID dollars in the budget as presented. So it's all other dollars that we've found in the budget to pay for those items. In terms of the conversations that we've been having, the superintendent, the city manager, and I have put together members of our senior leadership teams to talk about the best way we can use the dollars that we're going to get from the American Rescue Plan to have some sort of collective impact. We believe that, when you have over $700 million that's coming to the community, that we need to do something, that we should be able to do something transformational with those dollars. And so we have a team of folks that are talking about that. We still haven't gotten the guidance from Treasury on how those dollars can be spent. So we are waiting for that before we start putting those plans together. But those conversations are ongoing.
Next question is Joe Bruno, WSOC TV.
Hey, Dena, I'm really intrigued by the decision to wipe out library fines and free up 40,000 residents, allow them to have access to the library. Is this a new policy moving forward that the county won't charge any fines for late books? Can you just tell me a little bit more about this plan?
Sure. This is a priority that came to us from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library. And, it is really an equity issue that, your ability to access the library shouldn't be based on your ability to pay your fines. And so, yes, that's what we're saying is that if you have an overdue book, we want the book back for sure, but we're not going to be assessing any fees and fines for overdue materials. And those people that have had their access to the library terminated because of those fines and fees, that will be lifted and they'll be able to come back to the library. The worst thing you can do is not allow people to use the public library. And we know that that's disproportionately impacts people that are low income.
We're going to circle back to Hunter Science one more time.
Yes, my hand's up on purpose this time. Dena, pardon, I don't know this. I know that the city and county operate differently, but is there any money in this budget that would raise the pay or compensation of board members?
No. Well, let me rephrase that. Our board always gets the same average percentage increase in their pay that every other employee gets. So normally it's been somewhere between 2% and 3%. I think this year it'll be about 3%. So the board will get an increase of 3%, but that's how we've been doing it forever.
For that.
Next question.
Hey, Dena, it's Brent. Oh,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Brett.
Bill. I thought the floor was open. I apologize.
Go ahead.
Dena, quick question about CMS again. I know there are going to be a lot of parents that are trumpeting what you're saying and happy that you're being stern about this. At the same point, were there people with the CMS board or Ernest or other people, were they pretty, caught off guard by this? Were they upset by this decision?
Well, I didn't speak to any school board members, so I can certainly say that. Like I said, I've been talking to the superintendent about what the board, charged me to do with this budget as it relates to education and this priority to, do something about the, educational achievement gap. So I don't know that it shouldn't have been a surprise that there was going to be something in the budget tied to that because I had been talking to him about that. And in fact, our data person had met with their data person before we finalized the budget to have conversations about metrics, about performance data. So there were conversations ongoing about, perhaps what they could provide to us to help satisfy the board's request for more transparency and accountability.
Okay, let's go back to Dedrick.
One question about the reducing racial disparities. When would you like to have that position, the new position in the Office of Equity and Inclusion? When would you like that filled? What would be the responsibilities, and what would be the benchmarks that you would look for to see that the money is working?
So we have an equity action plan, and you can get that on our website, which is very specific about the activities, the targets, and the things that we're trying to do to sort of improve racial disparities. So that's clear. As soon as the budget's adopted in June, we'll prioritize all the positions that have been included in the budget. I think there's about 149 or so new positions that have been put in the budget. So we prioritize those as well as our existing vacancies, and we'll put a plan together. But our hope is to have it filled by October.
Okay. Thank you.
Joe Bruno, you're next.
Are there any significant pay raises or bonuses coming to Gibby, Dr. Washington, Dr. Sullivan, and some of these other folks who have been working 7 days a week on COVID response for the past year?
No, there's no bonuses. They're getting, we don't call it hazard pay, but it's, they're getting a bump in their salaries because they're doing this work as it relates to COVID response. And they'll continue to get that until probably the state of emergency is lifted, but there's nothing new or different in the budget as it relates to that. And there's no bonuses in the budget for any employee.
When are you going to let us back in the government center so we can cover these meetings in person? Do you have any plans for that coming up?
Well, you need to ask my colleague, the city manager, because he controls the building. So you need to talk to him and find out.
I'll try. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Dan, I have a question about affordable housing. I guess I know the city is doing affordable housing and you're now doing affordable housing. Just want to know, are you two talking together to make sure that, again, you're not doing the same thing, or how you can put your resources together to make this problem go away sooner rather than later?
Yeah, we do talk about that. And, we've just embarked on this whole project with Center City Partners, this Charmac homeless strategy for 2025. And that's, of course, one of the things that we're looking at. But I think we operate on different parts of the spectrum. And what the city's been focusing on a lot is, through the Housing Trust Fund and the bond dollars, is really creating new units and really doing sort of bricks and mortar. That is not where the county finds us. That's really not our sweet spot. That's not where we want to operate. But we're trying to find ways to do more things around rental subsidy and really working with populations that are in the homeless shelters and try to transition people out of the homeless shelters into permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing. So we focus on different types of programming, and we also focus on different populations. So I haven't found any overlap in terms of the work that we're doing in that space.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brett again. I'm curious. I know last year you guys were hit hard from a monetary standpoint with the tourism, the hotel tax, the rental car tax, and all that other stuff. How much at the end of the day did that hurt you guys last year looking back? And then also, what kind of projections were you guys being able to have going forward for the rest of this year and next year?
So the county doesn't get any hotel motel tax. Or all the hospitality taxes go to the city. So we weren't impacted by that. And I know they were significantly impacted. So for us, it's not an issue. Like we said in the presentation, we thought we were going to get a reduction in sales tax generally, but that did not occur. But again, we don't get any hospitality taxes.
My apologies on that.
That's okay.
Next question, please. Any more questions? All right, thank you everyone for your time today. Have a great
Thank you, everybody.
afternoon.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Bye.